So I just had a conversation with a good friend and colleague of mine about entrepreneurship and what's required to be successful. And the conundrum he was dealing with was the fact that he had a million different opportunities that are out there. And that's the beautiful thing about being here in the United States, right? That in this country, you can go out here and you can make a way for yourself as long as you have the will. Excuse me. And he asked me, look, what should I do? Right. And of course, I'm biased as it relates to the business endeavors I'm involved with, because while there are plenty of opportunities out there, not all of them are made the same. Right. A lot of it has to do with the lifestyle you want to curate for yourself and ultimately what the end game is. That is what should ultimately determine what type of entrepreneur endeavor you get involved in. But I wanted to focus on something different. I think I surprised him. And I said, look, man, it doesn't matter the what. He said, what do you mean? And the reality matters, it really doesn't matter what it is. It really does. That's not the most important thing. The bottom line is if you're listening to this, I know you're either entrepreneurial or you're looking to level up somehow. And I'm going to assume some things about you. That number one, you have skills. Number one, you have the capacity and ability to communicate. I'm going to assume that you can learn just about anything that's required to be an entrepreneur, because to be quite frank, entrepreneurs aren't blessed with special talents oftentimes. They're not especially skilled in a certain way. It's not like they have something that's intrinsic to them that makes them different than everyone else. We all breathe the same air. We all need to eat. We all need to defecate, right? There's nothing particularly special oftentimes about entrepreneurs. They just order their lives differently. They understand how to set the priorities, and they understand some basic truths, right? And entrepreneurship is really that simple. So you can accomplish anyhow. That's not really what's going to determine your success. It's ultimately going to be your why. It's ultimately going to be your reasons for getting up in the morning and making a decision to do some really tough things. Because, the conversation I want to have with him is, look, the biggest mistake new entrepreneurs make, and even those who have been in the game for a minute, but you've plateaued, you haven't scaled, you haven't been able to get over a particular hump, right? Most people aren't willing to accept the fact that you're going to work hard. There's no getting around it. It's the common denominator of success. And if you have a job, I want you to think about the worst job that you ever had. I want you to think about the times you've been fatigued, you've been worn out, and you haven't wanted to clock in to work. And I want you to multiply that times 10, because that's entrepreneurship. The bottom line is, if you make the decision to be a full-time entrepreneur, if you make the decision to be about this life, you're going to work harder than you ever have before. Now, look, the juice is worth the squeeze, right? Getting to a point where you have money as an issue out the way. Getting to the point where you're not waking up thinking about how you're going to take care of your children, pay your bills. Think about how you're going to pay for the lifestyle you want to curate. Just think about how you want to survive. The beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is you only need to get it right once. Now, you may try several times, but you only need to get it right once, and you can get those issues out the way, right? So the juice is worth the squeeze, right? Most individuals are not going to reach the age of 40, 50, 60, or even 70 and be at a point where they've got money as an issue out the way. They're always going to be behind the eight ball. That's most citizens. That's most people living in the United States of America, okay? And a lot of it has to do with understanding that your why has to be huge. It has to be big, right? Because entrepreneurship, once again, is difficult. There are going to be days, weeks, and years where you just don't feel like getting up and doing what's necessary. Just because you become an entrepreneur, that does not mean that trials and tribulations are going to disappear. It does not mean that divorce is not going to happen. For the men listening, you may have to deal with family court issues. You may have to deal with sickness and disability. You may deal with people who disappoint you. Life doesn't stop happening. Car accidents don't start happening. Being in situations where you're surrounded by folks who may not share your vision and goal, who may not have your work, that doesn't stop happening because you choose entrepreneurship. Those challenges don't disappear. And the bottom line is, if your why is not strong enough, you're not going to get up in the morning and give the extra, right? If you decide that entrepreneurship is going to be your deal, understand you are saying, look, I'm going to embark on an extraordinary journey. And the key part of the word extraordinary, the prefix is extra. You're going to be willing to give extra. That means you got to get up when you're tired. That means you have to execute when you don't feel like it. That means you're going to have to do the work despite the fear. That means you're going to have to sacrifice some things. You're going to have to give some things up to go up, right? Now, look, in the final analysis, once you get underway, you're going to conclude you didn't give up nothing. What you actually did is you freed yourself. Oftentimes, the things that you have to give up are actually ball and chains. They're things that are actually holding you back and holding you down, right? You may have to totally alter your lifestyle. You may have to go literally from owning to renting. I know individuals who have $200,000 houses, $2,000 mortgages, but they're literally spending 50 to 70% of every dime they earn just to stay in that house. That's a ball and chain. If you're spending 50 to 70% of every dime that you earn on trying to maintain a residence, you have too much house. That's a ball and chain. That's something that's holding you back, right? And so look, because of the pandemic, or if you're like me and you experienced some things in 2008, you're going to have to give up a lot of different things. And at the time, you're going to feel like it's sacrifice. But in reality, man, those things are ball and chains. You got to let them go. There are mindsets, there are attitudes, relationships that have to fall by the wayside. And these things are tough. And if you don't have a strong enough why, you won't do it. You won't do what's necessary because you're going to have to give extra. When you feel like you're burnt out, when you're tired, when you have no more to give, you're going to have to give extra. You have to find the extra. Right? And the only way you find that is by having a strong why. And oftentimes people don't want to do the deep dive, to really get behind what's really motivating them. The individual I spoke to this morning said, look, I'm just tired of working for someone. I said, that's not good enough. Being tired of working for someone is not good enough. Because when you get tired of being tired of working for that person, you got to find the energy to do even more and above and beyond that. Whether you're working a 9 to 5 or a 5 to 11, right? When your work hours end, when your period of indentured servitude comes to an end, you got to have the energy and the will to start working on your freedom plan, your financial independence plan, which means you're going to have to do it anyway. Despite all the other things that may transpire in your life, you still got to find the energy. You still got to make the time or actually become more effective in the time that you have, right? To still do the things that are required to get to the destination. And that's where you fall back on your why. You got to ask yourself, what are the things that you're passionate about? What are the things that matter most to you? What are the deal breakers? You know, what are the things that you want that you can't feel like you can't live and can't breathe without? You got to find those things, right? So whether it's leaving a legacy for your family, whether it's your children seeing you and viewing you in a certain type of way, whether it's certain things you want to accomplish out here that you're passionate about, you got to find that. What are the things that make you angry? What are the things that light a fire in your belly? What are the things that are going to push you above and beyond what you're doing right now? You got to find those things. You know, so often, so many of us die. And the only thing we leave behind are tears and memories and pictures. For me, that wasn't going to be good enough. I made up my mind a long time ago. I was going to draw a line in the sand and end mediocrity, financial mediocrity in my family line. I wanted to make sure that I built something where when I met my maker, my children would know I existed. And my grandchildren's grandchildren would know I existed. That somebody stood in the gap and created something that would allow them to have the same opportunities that other individuals who have been born into families or been involved in situations where they didn't have to deal with certain type of sacrifices, right? And so what is it for you? I mean, I have a number of different whys, but what is it for you? You know, what are the things that you fear? What are the things that you desire? What are the things that get you enthusiastic and excited? And look, and I know, you know, you have this mode of thinking out there that, you know, you don't want to put yourself out there and look absurd or ridiculous. You don't want to be in a situation where you look silly. Look, damn that. You got to find the thing that gets you enthusiastic. You got to find the thing that makes you smile despite the pain. These things matter. People need to know that you're going somewhere. Nobody wants to partner with or follow a dud. You got to be on fire about something. You got to find that thing. Never mind what people think about you or how they feel about you. You know, one of the things that I share on a regular basis when individuals ask me, Mr. Buford, how are you doing? I say, it's another beautiful day in the neighborhood. And look, my life could be going to hell in a handbasket, but it's another beautiful day in the neighborhood because I know today I'm living, I'm breathing, I'm above ground, which means I have the opportunity to execute and change the circumstances that color my life. I have the opportunity to execute and change the narrative from the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years, whatever it may be for you, right? And you have to spend the time. It doesn't matter. You got to find the fire. Because the how, you can figure that out. If you're reasonably intelligent, you don't have to be the smartest person in the world. You're just reasonably intelligent. If you're willing to learn, if you're willing to work, you can accomplish any how that's required to be successful as an entrepreneur. But you got to have a fire. You got to have wood to put on the fire. You got to find the wood. And if you don't have wood to feed the fire, you're going to catch that L. You're going to operate in mediocrity. You're not going to achieve your goals as an entrepreneur. When death, disability, car accidents, layoffs, emotional distress transpire, it's going to knock you off your square. You're going to be at a point where you're not able to find the will and energy to do the things you want to do. And that's why this is so absolutely important. I know it sounds trite. Everyone says the same thing. Find your why, find your why. But there's a reason for that. It is truly the most important thing you can do to be successful as an entrepreneur. Is to define what are the things that you value most. Who do you want to serve? Who do you want to help? What are the things that you would do even if you were broke? What are the things that you would do? What are the things that you would execute upon even if you were left with nothing? If you were living in a hotel or living out of a cardboard box, right, on your knuckles, what is the thing you would still turn around and do with excitement, enthusiasm, and belief? And you need to take that. You need to take that fire and pour it into the how. If you have that fire, you can accomplish anything, right? And once again, there are a plethora of opportunities you can pour it into. I'm biased. You want to learn what it is that I'm doing? You can pretty much go to the link, probably attach this video in my profile. You can learn what I'm doing. That's allowed me to accomplish a lot of the whys that I want to accomplish and basically to punch above my weight class, right? Coming from an environment where I wasn't supported, coming from an environment where I didn't grow up around wealthy people, coming from an environment where wealth principles weren't passed on to me. How did I overcome a lot of those things? Why am I still excited? Even with the station I'm at now that I'm not 100% satisfied with, where do I find energy to keep going in my mid 40s? You got to find that thing for you, right? And so I hope this serves someone who's listening. Look, the what? There's so many whats. There's so many different business endeavors you can be involved in. But once again, if you don't have the fire, if you don't have the wood to pour on that fire, it doesn't matter. You are going to fizzle out. Okay, you have to find the fuel, and the fuel is your why. So don't concern yourself what other people think about your why. Don't concern yourself about trying to figure out whether or not you'll be acceptable to individuals. Look, don't try to double down on being someone else. They're already, those people are already taken. They already exist. Find your why. You double down on you. Doesn't mean you don't learn from individuals. That doesn't mean you can't glean wisdom from other individuals. But everyone else is already taken. Stop trying to be other people. Be you. Be the best you can be. And find the reason why. Find the vision, the goals, the objectives, the destinations, the things that matter most to you that will give you the energy to become your best self and get out here and excel. This, it was just on my heart. I wanted to share it after the conversation I had. It was kind of tough because the gentleman was kind of, was in a bad way. It was kind of just floating through, just getting by, just existing, right? I just don't think any of us put on this earth to exist. We're put on this earth to live, to grow, right? To become more. Find out what is going to motivate you to start the journey of becoming the person that you were truly destined to be.